This morning, I'm going to talk about how to outgrow our emotional addictions. These are our painful memories and those recordings we play over and over again in our mind when we wake up in the morning. We often wake up to an emotional state that we have memorized in the past, things that have happened, and recurring situations and experiences that create a sense of failure or hopelessness, despair, or whatever it might be. And to change this is a project. It's something we really have to take time over several months, maybe even several years, to learn how to unplug from our old personality. And a lot of people don't understand that their emotions are created out of certain reflexes they have in their memory system. They are thinking about something repeatedly, and they believe there is a truth in that, conversation they're having with themselves about a person or a situation. We can become addicted to a situation, an environment, or a person. We have a memory of something that happened to us as a child, and that has now become part of the template of our personality. Maybe our father abandoned us, or our parents divorced, or they were fighting all the time, or we didn't have enough money, or there was a family secret where something had happened and it wasn't discussed in the open, so there was always a sense of this secrecy going on. Whatever it is, so when you wake up in the morning, the first thing to do is to realize that you want to memorize the future you truly want to have for yourself. So we're memorizing ourselves into the grid of the future reality. And to practice this, you might want to start with some small experiments of little things that you would like to do. Perhaps you're having a challenge in a relationship and it seems quite hopeless in the moment. So you want to memorize that relationship in a different way. You want to memorize yourself being happy with that person, or resolving the problem, or having a conversation with them. And that conversation is helping to heal the situation. And you keep seeing yourself with the person feeling a different way, because the fear is often what will draw ourselves into a situation that we truly don't want. When we fear something, we're actually pulling that situation towards us. And one of the ways that in the Sedona method they do help us to let go of our fears is to ask ourselves a series of questions. The first one is, what is it that I'm afraid will happen? And then you ask, what is it I don't want to have happen? And then you ask the third question, which is, am I willing not to have that happen in the future? And that, when I first heard that myself, it was very odd and surprising. What do you mean, I want that to happen? No, we're afraid it will happen, and we almost judge the future that there's no other choice. And we've had that experience so many times that we don't really believe there is a choice in how we are thinking. So we actually put ourselves into a little ball of fear, bracing ourselves for this future that we know is going to happen. Well, that doesn't have to happen. We can memorize ourselves into a future scenario where things are starting to work out. And it does take an extraordinary amount of discipline if you've been a victim, if you've been thinking as a victim for many, many, many years. To train yourself to see your responsibility in creating your environment is a really big leap. And it takes, even for someone who's been practicing this for many years, I can tell you, to own your environment, to own what you're creating, is a huge leap of faith. And it means that you start believing that the universe is a friendly place, that it's helping you, it's assisting you, it's actually wants to work for you, it wants to be there for you. And when we make friends with the universe and with this current of energy that is flowing through us, that is constantly keeping us animated and alive, we realize that it also is okay with us having a better situation in our lives. So the first thing we might do is when we encounter something in our life that is negative or scary or frightening or disturbing, we sit ourselves down and we start to memorize a different emotion. We start to elevate our emotional state out of survival centers, out of the three lower survival centers of security and lack and victimization. We start to get our energy into our heart center. We start to remember things that happened that were really good and where things worked out, or anything that brings a sense of openness to our heart. You can just imagine it like a flower opening. Just anything to get the heart center to open up is really, really important in getting to an elevated emotional state. And as you're having this elevated emotional state, you begin to imagine what it is that you would like to have happen, that you would just like to imagine could possibly happen. At first, you may think it's absolutely impossible because you've never ever had anything like this happen to you before. But the more you can raise your awareness to a state of elevation, like heightened emotion, joy, expectation, gratitude. Even gratitude is a really good one because you think about that you're already in that situation and you're feeling so grateful that you've received this big check, or that you've gotten this great raise, or you've been accepted as the CEO of a corporation, or you've bought your first house, or you've met the person of your dreams, whatever it might be. And the second thing I wanted to discuss about this is that we often will have an addiction to a person helping us to continue an emotional state. So we choose a person who will open up our fear, or elevate our sense of failure, or elevate our sense of worthlessness by the things that they do and say. And so that's one of the things to start to unplug from needing that person to reaffirm that emotional addiction, and choosing to be and feel inside yourself that you are already more than that, and to withdraw your attention and to marrying that future with that person where you're constantly in these escalated scenarios with them where you're hurt or upset or angry or feel rejected. If you're having situations like that in relationships, then know that it comes from you memorizing an old scenario into the future. So now you imagine yourself in the future in scenarios where you feel good, you feel worthy, you are being spoken to in a very respectful way, where you feel a sense of joy, a sense of wonder, a sense of your own self-worth. And so this is one of the ways that we start to get ourselves out of an emotionally addictive state with our environment, with our job, with other people, and to begin to marry a future reality by having an elevated emotional state around that. We get ourselves out of our lower three centers into our higher centers, into this center where we can see clearly all 360 degrees around what needs to happen for our betterment. And once we are in that state of betterment, then people are attracted to us. Situations come to us on their own. Betterment comes to us on its own, because we are now being that state of wealth, abundance, prosperity, love, joy, peace. And people are automatically attracted to someone that is in an elevated state of emotions. So that's my story for today, and I'll be back to talk more about how to marry a future reality with an elevated emotion.